Dune sat in the back row of the lecture hall, her notebook open on the desk in front of her. The classroom was different from anything on Earth. The seats curved in a spiral around the central platform, and each desk adjusted automatically to fit the students sitting there. Some students needed perches instead of chairs. Others sat in tanks of water that hovered mysteriously in place. She was one of only 3 humans on Station Kepler 7, a massive space station that served as a school for students from across the galaxy. Earth had joined the Galactic Coalition just 15 years ago, and humans were still newcomers. Most species had been traveling through space for thousands of years. Humans were the new kids, and everyone watched them carefully. Professor Talon walked to the center of the platform. She was tall and covered in sleek feathers that shimmered blue and green under the lights. Her species, the avians, had been studying predators for centuries. Dayun liked her classes, even though they made some of the other students nervous. Today's lesson was special. Professor Talon had mentioned it all week. They would see a real predator up close, safely contained, of course. The creature was called a shriek hunter, and it came from a planet in the Andros sector. It was supposed to teach them about hunting behaviors and survival instincts. A large transparent cage rose from the floor in the center of the room. Inside was the shriek hunter. Diane leaned forward to see it better. The creature was about the size of a large dog, but it had 6 legs instead of 4. Its skin changed colors slowly, shifting from gray to brown to match the floor of its cage. Sharp claws clicked against the transparent material as it moved. Its head was flat and wide, with sensory organs that Diane couldn't quite identify. It looked dangerous. It looked hungry. The other students shifted in their seats. A Quilarian student, covered in soft fur and with large eyes on the sides of her head, moved her desk back a few feet. The crystalline lumens in the front row dimmed their natural glow, trying not to attract attention. Everyone seemed afraid except Dayun. She was fascinated. Professor Talon began her lecture. She explained how the shriek hunter used its color-changing skin to ambush prey. She described its hunting patterns and its place in the food chain. The creature paced inside its cage, back and forth, back and forth. Its head turned to track the movement of students as they shifted in their seats. Then something went wrong. A sharp alarm sound filled the room. Red lights flashed along the walls. Professor Talon's feathers stood up in alarm as she looked at her control panel. The magnetic locks on the cage were failing. The transparent panels began to separate at the seams. The shriek hunter noticed immediately. It stopped pacing. Its body went completely still except for its head, which tilted slightly as it analyzed the weakening barrier. Then it moved fast, so fast that most students didn't see it happen. The creature slammed against the cage wall and the panel shattered outward. The shriek hunter was free. Students screamed. Some tried to run for the doors, but emergency protocols had already sealed them. The station's safety system was designed to keep dangerous creatures from reaching the main corridors. That meant everyone was locked inside with the predator. A Quilarian student froze in her seat, her breathing rapid and panicked. 2 Lumen students pressed themselves against the far wall, their crystalline bodies ringing with fear sounds. Professor Talon shouted commands from her observation booth. She had made it to safety just before the doors sealed, but now she was trapped behind protective glass, unable to help her students directly. Security was on its way, but it would take minutes for them to override the lockdown. Minutes they might not have. The shriek hunter landed on the floor of the classroom. Its claws scraped against the smooth surface as it turned in a slow circle. Its sensory organs swept across the room, examining each student. Down could see its body language change. It was no longer confused or defensive. It was hunting. The creature moved toward a group of drift speaker students. These were aquatic beings floating in their hovering water tanks. They had no way to run, no way to hide. The shriek hunter's muscles tensed, ready to leap, but then it stopped. Its head turned sharply to the left. It was looking at Dayun. Dayun hadn't moved. She sat in her seat, her hands flat on the desk, watching the creature with steady eyes. She wasn't frozen like the Quilarians or panicking like the others. She was simply watching, calm and still. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her breathing even. Some instinct told her that running would be the worst thing she could do. The shriek hunter changed direction. It moved toward her instead, its 6 legs carrying it smoothly across the floor. Other students scrambled to get out of its way. A Quilarian fell from her seat in her rush to escape. The creature ignored them all. Its attention was fixed on Dayun. She kept her eyes on the predator. She had learned in her anthropology classes that eye contact could mean different things to different species. For some prey animals, direct eye contact from a predator meant immediate danger. But for predators themselves, eye contact was a challenge, a test of dominance. She didn't look away. The shriek hunter reached her desk. It was so close she could see the individual scales on its skin and smell the strange, sharp scent of its body. Its sensory organs swept over her, analyzing her from multiple angles. Daeun's muscles were tense, ready to move if she needed to, but she didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She just watched. Then something unexpected happened. The creature's body language changed completely. The tension in its muscles relaxed. Its claws retracted slightly. It circled her desk once, moving slowly, and then it positioned itself directly behind her chair. It tucked its body low to the ground, using her as cover, and continued to watch the other students with its hunting gaze. The classroom fell into shocked silence. Even the panicked breathing of the Quillarians stopped as everyone stared at the scene. The predator, the dangerous creature that had been seconds away from attacking, was hiding behind the human student. It was using Daeun as a shield. Professor Talon's voice came through the speakers, shaking slightly. "Nobody move. Stay exactly where you are. Daeun, are you injured?" Daeun swallowed hard before answering. "No, I'm okay. It's just sitting behind me. Don't make any sudden movements. We're analyzing the situation now." Daeun could feel the shriek hunter breathing behind her. Its body was pressed against the back of her chair. Occasionally, it would peek around her side to track a student who shifted position, but it always pulled back to stay hidden behind her. It was using her presence as protection from the others, but that made no sense. She was smaller than most students in the room. She had no weapons, no natural defenses. Why would a predator feel safer near her? In the observation booth, Professor Talon worked frantically at her console. She ran biological scans of both Daeun and the shriek hunter. She reviewed everything she knew about predator behavior. And slowly, impossibly, she began to understand what was happening. The shriek hunter wasn't hiding from the other students. It was hiding with another predator. It had recognized something in the human that overrode its hunting instincts, something that told it this small, seemingly weak creature was far more dangerous than she appeared. The predator had recognized that Daeun was a predator too, and in the hierarchy of hunters, it had decided she was the one to fear. The classroom remained frozen in time. Students barely breathed as they watched the shriek hunter crouched behind Daeun's chair. 5 minutes had passed since the lockdown began, and the creature showed no signs of leaving its chosen position. Occasionally, it would shift its weight from one set of legs to another, but it never moved away from the human student. Daeun's arms were getting tired from holding them still on the desk. Her back was rigid with tension, though she tried to appear calm. She could hear the shriek hunter's breathing, a soft clicking sound that came from the sensory organs near its head. Every few seconds, the creature would lean to the side to peer around her at the other students, then quickly pull back into her shadow. Professor Talon's voice came through the speakers again, but this time she sounded less panicked and more confused. "Daeun, I need you to listen carefully. I've been running scans and analyzing the creature's behavior. What we're seeing shouldn't be possible." "What do you mean?" Daeun asked quietly, afraid that speaking too loudly might disturb the predator behind her. "The shriek hunter is displaying subordinate behavior. It's treating you as a dominant predator. That's why it's using you as cover. It feels safer near you than anywhere else in the room." A Quillarian student spoke up, her voice trembling. "But that makes no sense. Humans aren't predators. They're not even very strong." Professor Talon was silent for a moment, and Daeun could hear her typing rapidly on her console. When she spoke again, her voice held a note of wonder and something that might have been fear. "Actually, humans are very much predators. We just never realized how significant that is because we've never seen them in a room full of prey species before." She began to explain what her scans had revealed. The shriek hunter's sensory organs were far more complex than anyone had understood. They didn't just detect movement and heat. They analyzed posture, muscle tension, eye focus, and even chemical signals in the air. The creature could identify what role another animal played in the food chain simply by observing them. And when it looked at Daeun, every signal told it the same thing. "Apex predator. Look at her eyes," Professor Talon said, bringing up an image on the classroom's display screens. It showed Daeun's face from the security cameras. Human eyes face forward, both pointing in the same direction. That's a predator's trait. Prey animals have eyes on the sides of their heads to watch for danger from all directions. Predators have forward-facing eyes to track their prey. The Quillarian student looked at her own reflection in a dark screen. Her large eyes were indeed on the sides of her head. She looked back at Daeun with new understanding and new fear. Professor Talon continued, "Humans also have remarkable persistence. On Earth, they evolved as what we call persistence hunters. They would chase prey for hours, even days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Most predators can only run fast for short bursts, but humans can run at a steady pace almost indefinitely." A Lumen student's voice rang out like chimes. "But humans seem so fragile. They don't have claws or fangs or armor." "They don't need them," Professor Talon replied. "Humans have intelligence, endurance, and something else. Watch Daeun's body language. She hasn't moved erratically. She hasn't panicked. She's been completely still, watching and waiting. That's a predator's patience. The Shriek Hunter recognizes that patience. It recognizes the way she watches without fear." Daeun felt strange hearing herself described this way. She had never thought of herself as a predator. She liked animals. She had chosen to study xenobiology because she wanted to understand and help other species. But as Professor Talon spoke, memories came to her. Stories from Earth's history. Humans walking across entire continents following herds of animals. Humans tracking wounded prey for days through forests and deserts. Humans who survived in every environment on their planet. From frozen tundras to burning deserts by hunting and adapting. The Shriek Hunter shifted behind her again and she felt its body press against her chair. It was still watching the other students, but its posture had relaxed even more. It was no longer in hunting mode. It was in following mode, like a pack animal that had found its leader. Officer Vorish's voice joined the communication channel. He was the head of security, an insectoid with a body like living armor. "Professor Talon, we need to get that creature back into containment. We have a team ready to move in, but we need it away from the students first." "I'm not sure that's wise," Professor Talon said. "If your team bursts in with weapons and nets, the Shriek Hunter will feel threatened. It might attack to defend itself in Daeun. Then what do you suggest?" There was a long pause. Then Professor Talon said something that made everyone in the classroom tense with anxiety. "I think Daeun should walk it back to the cage herself." Daeun's heart jumped. "You want me to do what?" "The creature sees you as a dominant predator. If you move toward the cage, it should follow you. You'll be its safe zone. As long as you're between it and the other students, it will stay calm. And if it doesn't follow me? If it decides to attack instead? Then we all run," Professor Talon admitted. "But I don't think it will. Every piece of data tells me it's submitted to you. It will follow your lead." Daeun took a slow breath. Her anthropology professor back on Earth had once told her class something interesting. He said that humans were so dangerous because they didn't know they were dangerous. They compared themselves to other humans, the only predator on Earth that wasn't afraid of them. Put a human next to a lion and the human seemed weak. But put a human in a room with rabbits and deer and suddenly the truth became clear. She was in a room full of rabbits and deer, and there was a predator behind her that had recognized what she was. "Okay," she said quietly. "Tell me what to do." Professor Talon gave her instructions. "Move slowly, stay calm. Walk directly toward the cage. Don't make sudden movements. Above all, project confidence. Predators could sense fear and uncertainty." Daeun stood up slowly from her chair. The Shriek Hunter immediately rose with her, staying close behind her legs. She could feel its presence like a shadow. She took one step forward. The creature matched her movement exactly. Another step. Another match. The other students pressed themselves against the walls as Daeun walked through the classroom. She kept her pace steady, her eyes forward. The cage was across the room, maybe 20 meters away. It felt like 20 kilometers. 15 meters. 12 meters. 10. Then a Quilarian student panicked. She had been holding herself together through pure willpower, but seeing the predator moving through the room was too much. She bolted for the sealed door, her survival instincts overriding her rational mind. The Shriek Hunter reacted instantly. Its prey drive activated like a switch being flipped. It broke away from Daeun and launched itself toward the running student, its claws extending, its body shifting into attack mode. The Quilarian screamed. Daeun didn't think. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. She released a sharp, loud shout that echoed through the classroom like a gunshot. "Stop!" The Shriek Hunter froze in mid-leap. Its body hung in the air for one impossible moment, then crashed to the floor. It didn't move. It lay there, head down, as if waiting for permission to exist. The classroom was completely silent. Everyone stared at Daeun, who stood with her hand outstretched and her voice still echoing off the walls. She hadn't moved toward the creature. She hadn't touched it. She had simply commanded it to stop, and it had obeyed. Professor Talon's voice was barely a whisper. "By all the stars in the galaxy." She dominated it with just her voice. Daeun looked at her own hand, still extended in a stopping gesture. She hadn't known she could do that. She hadn't known humans could do that. But somewhere deep in her genetic memory, in the millions of years of evolution that had shaped her species, there had been the knowledge of how to command a lesser predator. The Shriek Hunter slowly pulled itself up and slunk back to her side, even more submissive than before. It pressed against her leg like a dog seeking forgiveness. Daeun lowered her hand and started walking toward the cage again. This time the Shriek Hunter didn't leave her side. Daeun reached the cage with the Shriek Hunter still pressed against her side. The reinforced transparent panels had been rebuilt by emergency systems, leaving an opening just large enough for the creature to enter. She stopped in front of the entrance and looked down at the predator that had been terrorizing her classroom just minutes before. The Shriek Hunter looked back at her. Its sensory organs swept across her face one more time, reading signals she didn't know she was sending. Then, without any command from Daeun, the creature walked calmly into the cage and settled in the center. It watched her through the transparent wall as the panels sealed shut and the magnetic locks engaged with a solid click. Daeun let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her legs felt weak and she had to lean against the wall to stay standing. The classroom doors unsealed with a hiss and security teams rushed in, followed by medical personnel. Professor Talon flew down from her observation booth, her feathers ruffled with stress. "Is anyone hurt?" Officer Varesh's mechanical voice boomed through the space as his team swept the room with scanners. All the students were shaken, but no one was injured. The Quillarian who had panicked was sobbing quietly, comforted by her friends. The lumens had regained their glow but stayed clustered together. Everyone kept glancing at Daeun, but now their looks were different. There was fear in their eyes, yes, but also something else. Awe, maybe, or confusion. Professor Talon approached Daeun carefully, as if the human student might be as dangerous as the creature now locked away. "How are you feeling?" "I'm okay," Daeun said, though her voice shook slightly.
"What happened at the end there?"
When I shouted at it, the professor's feathers smoothed down as she regained her composure. "You displayed dominance. Your voice contained frequencies and patterns that the Shriek Hunter interpreted as a command from a superior predator. It was instinctive on your part. You didn't learn that behavior. It's coded into your species." Daeun looked at her hands again. They were steady now, but they felt like they belonged to someone else. "I've never done anything like that before. I didn't even know I could." "That's because you've spent your entire life surrounded by other humans," Professor Talon explained. "You judge yourself against your own species. But humans are the only predators on Earth that aren't afraid of each other. Put a human in a room with lions or wolves and sometimes the human dominates. It's not magic. It's millions of years of evolution. Over the next few days, the story spread through Station Kepler 7 like wildfire. Students who hadn't been in the classroom heard exaggerated versions of what happened. Some said Daeun had fought the Shriek Hunter with her bare hands. Others claimed she had some kind of mind control power. The truth was strange enough without embellishment, but people needed to make sense of what they had witnessed. Daeun noticed the changes immediately. Students who used to smile and chat with her in the corridors now gave her a wide berth. They would stop talking when she approached and wouldn't make eye contact. Some species, particularly the herbivorous ones, seemed actively afraid of her. It hurt more than she wanted to admit. But not all the changes were negative. A group of Kravik traders, a carnivorous species known for their aggressive business tactics, invited her to their table in the dining hall. They treated her with a respect they showed few others. A professor from the combat training department asked if she would be interested in demonstrating human fighting techniques. Even Officer Varesh seemed to regard her differently, with what might have been approval in his alien features. Her friend Hyunwoo found her sitting alone in the observation deck 3 days after the incident. He was one of the other 2 humans on the station, an engineering student with quick hands and a quicker mind. He sat down next to her without asking, looking out at the stars beyond the viewport. "People are being weird around you, huh?" he said. "That's an understatement," Daeun replied. "Half the station acts like I'm going to eat them. The other half wants to study me like I'm a science experiment." Hyunwoo nodded. Mireille and I have been getting strange looks too, just by association. People suddenly remember that there are 3 humans on this station, not just one. Mireille was their 3rd human friend, a medical student who spent most of her time in the xenobiology labs. She was brilliant and kind, and Daeun hated the thought of her being treated differently because of what had happened. "I didn't mean for any of this," Daeun said quietly. "I just did what felt natural." "That's exactly what scares them," Hyunwoo said. "You know what I've been thinking about? All those stories from Earth, humans who survive bear attacks by staring the bear down, surfers who punch sharks, hikers who make themselves look big and scary to mountain lions. We do that stuff all the time and think it's normal. It is normal. For us. Exactly. For us. But everyone else on this station comes from planets where the prey animals won the evolutionary race. They became intelligent, built societies, and eventually made it to space. But they're still prey animals at their core. And now they're in a school with 3 predators who don't even realize they're predators." Daeun turned to look at her friend. "Do you think we're dangerous?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment, then smiled slightly. "I think we're human. And I think that's something the galaxy is still learning to understand." The Academy Board called an emergency meeting 4 days after the incident. They didn't invite Daeun, but she heard about it from Professor Talon, who was required to testify. The board was debating whether humans should be allowed to continue in certain programs, particularly those involving the study of dangerous creatures. Some board members argued that the incident proved humans had instincts they couldn't control. What if a human student reacted violently in a stressful situation? What if their predatory nature made them unsuitable for diplomatic roles? The questions went on and on, each one treating humans like unpredictable weapons rather than people. Professor Talon defended the humans according to what she told Daeun later. She pointed out that Daeun had saved everyone in that classroom. Without her presence, the Shriek Hunter might have killed multiple students before security could respond. The human instincts that frightened the board were the same instincts that had protected prey species from harm. The debate continued for days. Daeun tried to focus on her studies, but it was hard to concentrate when she knew people were deciding her future in meetings she couldn't attend. Hyunwoo and Mireille tried to keep her spirits up, but they were all feeling the pressure. Then on the 6th day after the Shriek Hunter incident, the alarm started again. Daeun was in the library when the first alarm sounded. It was different from the classroom emergency alarm, deeper and more urgent. Red lights flashed throughout the station, and an automated voice began broadcasting on all channels. "Code Black. Apex Predator containment failure. All personnel proceed to secure zones immediately." This is not a drill. Students around her began to panic. Code Black meant something had escaped that was far more dangerous than a Shriek Hunter. It meant lives were at risk. Hyunwoo's voice crackled through Daeun's communication device. "Are you seeing this? Something escaped from the research wing. They're saying it's a Void Claw." Daeun's blood went cold. She had studied Void Claws in her predator behavior class. They were apex predators from the galactic fringe, intelligent enough to use tools and solve complex problems. They could kill most known species in seconds. One Void Claw loose on the station was a disaster. "Where is it now?" she asked, already moving toward the exit. "Heading toward the residential sector." "Daeun, that's where the student dormitories are. That's where we live." She started running. Behind her, library staff shouted for her to get to a secure zone, but she ignored them. Hundreds of students were in those dormitories, most of them young and from prey species. They would have no chance against a Void Claw. As she ran through the corridors, Daeun's mind was racing. The station's security would be mobilizing, but they were trained to contain and control, not to hunt. They would try to use barriers and containment fields, but a Void Claw could bypass most of those systems. Her communication device buzzed again. This time it was Officer Varesh. "Daeun, stop where you are. The residential sector is being evacuated. Do not approach the affected area." She didn't stop. "How many casualties so far?" There was a pause. Then reluctantly, 2 station personnel. "The creature is extremely aggressive and intelligent. Standard containment protocols are failing." "Then you need to try something different," Daeun said. And she kept running toward the dormitories, toward the danger, following an instinct that was older than civilization itself. The residential sector was chaos. Students poured out of doorways, some carrying belongings, others just running. Station security was trying to organize an orderly evacuation, but panic made organization impossible. Daeun pushed against the crowd. heading deeper into the sector while everyone else fled toward safety. A security drone spotted her and projected Officer Voresh's hologram in front of her path. "Daeun, you need to evacuate immediately." "This is not a request. Where is it now?" she demanded. Officer Voresh's insectoid features were hard to read, but his posture showed frustration. "Level 7, Corridor Gamma. It's moving toward the main dormitory complex. We've lost 3 more personnel trying to corner it. Every containment attempt has failed." "Because you're trying to trap it," Daeun said. "It's too smart for traps. You need to hunt it." "We don't hunt," Voresh replied. "We contain and control. That's what security does." "Then you're using the wrong approach for the wrong kind of creature." Another voice joined the communication channel. "Professor Talon. Officer Voresh, I suggest we listen to her. The Void Claw is exhibiting classic apex predator behavior. It's treating our security measures like they're coming from prey animals trying to hide from it, because they are." "What are you suggesting?" Voresh asked, though his tone suggested he already knew and didn't like it. "Use the humans," Professor Talon said. "All 3 of them. They're persistence hunters. They know how to track and corner prey." "Absolutely not. I will not risk students in an active crisis situation." "You're already losing personnel," Daeun pointed out. "And if that thing reaches the dormitories, you'll lose students too. How many lives are you willing to sacrifice because you're too proud to admit that prey species don't know how to hunt?" The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Officer Voresh spoke. "If we do this, you follow my orders exactly. All 3 humans will be equipped with tracking devices and communication equipment. You locate the Void Claw and keep it contained until heavy security can arrive with proper containment equipment. You do not engage it directly. Am I clear?" "Crystal clear," Daeun said, already moving toward the security checkpoint where Hyunwoo and Mirai were waiting. Her 2 friends looked worried but determined. Hyunwoo had his tablet out, displaying a map of the residential sector. Mirai carried a medical kit, though Daeun hoped they wouldn't need it. A security officer fitted each of them with tracking devices and communication earpieces. "The Void Claw was last seen here," the security officer said, pointing to a section of the map. "It's moving erratically, doubling back on its own path. It seems to be searching for something." "It's hunting," Hyunwoo said quietly. "It's looking for prey that hasn't evacuated yet." The 3 humans looked at each other. Without discussing it, they began to spread out, each taking a different corridor. It felt natural, like something they had done 1,000 times before. Hyunwoo went left toward the engineering labs. Mirai went right toward the medical wing. Daeun went straight ahead toward the main dormitory complex. The corridors were eerily empty. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. Dawn moved quietly, her footsteps barely making sound on the metal floor. She kept her breathing steady and her senses alert. Every shadow could hide a predator. Every corner could be an ambush point. Her communication device crackled softly. Hyunwoo's voice barely above a whisper. "I've got tracks. Claw marks on the floor heading toward Junction 5. "I see blood traces," Mirai reported, leading away from Junction 5 toward the botanical gardens. Daeun processed this information quickly. The Void Claw had attacked someone at Junction 5, then moved toward the botanical gardens. That was a large, open space filled with plants from various worlds, including Earth. Why would a predator go there? Then she understood. It's looking for cover. Open corridors make it visible to security drones. The gardens have plants and shadows. It can hide there. And there are students who live in the garden dormitories, Hyunwoo added grimly. Some species need specific atmospheric conditions. They can't evacuate as quickly as others. The 3 humans changed direction, all moving toward the botanical gardens. They stayed in communication, updating each other on their positions. Without planning it, they formed a loose triangle, covering more ground while staying close enough to support each other. Daeun reached the gardens first. The large doors were open, and the air that drifted out smelled of earth, soil and plants and the strange humidity that came from growing things. She stepped inside carefully. The gardens were enormous, with paths winding through sections dedicated to different worlds. She could see purple plants from the Quillarian homeworld, crystalline formations that the lumens tended, and in the distance, a section of green that made her heart ache with homesickness. The Earth section. Trees, grass, flowers, all grown from seeds brought from home. It was a small piece of their planet, millions of miles away from where it belonged, and somewhere in these gardens was a Void Claw hunting. Hyunwoo entered through the east door, moving between the Quillarian plants. Mirai came through the south entrance near the aquatic sections. They spread out, eyes scanning the shadows, ears alert for any sound. Officer Varesh's voice came through their communication devices. We have heat signatures from 3 students still in the gardens. 2 lumens in Section 7, and 1 Quillarian in Section 12. They're hiding, but the Void Claw will find them soon. We'll find it first, Dayun said with more confidence than she felt. They moved through the gardens in silence. Dayun noticed how naturally they adapted to the environment. Hyunwoo used the higher ground, climbing onto platforms to get a better view. Mirai stayed near water features where sounds would be masked. Dawn moved through the earth section, where she understood every plant and shadow. Then she saw it. A flicker of movement near the trees, too large to be a small animal, too fast to be a student. The Void Claw. It was bigger than she had imagined, nearly the size of a human. Its body was sleek and dark, covered in plates that looked like they could deflect most weapons. Its limbs were long and ended in curved claws that could tear through metal. But most disturbing were its eyes. They glowed faintly in the dim light, and they held intelligence. This wasn't a mindless beast. This was a thinking, planning predator. I see it, Daeun whispered into her communication device. Earth section near the oak trees. We're moving to your position, Hyunwoo replied. Don't engage. But Daeun didn't move away. She stood still, watching the Void Claw as it prowled between the trees. It hadn't noticed her yet. Its attention was focused on something else. She followed its gaze and saw a Quillarian student pressed against the trunk of a tree, trying desperately to stay still and quiet. The Void Claw's muscles tensed. It was preparing to attack. Daeun didn't think. She stepped forward, deliberately making noise. The Void Claw's head snapped toward her, its glowing eyes fixing on her position. For a moment, predator and human stared at each other through the artificial forest of the botanical gardens. Then the Void Claw charged. It moved faster than anything Daeun had ever seen. One moment it was 20 meters away, the next it was almost on top of her. She threw herself to the side, rolling behind a tree as the creature's claws raked through the space where she had been standing. Hyunwoo appeared on her left, shouting and waving his arms. The Void Claw turned toward him, momentarily distracted. Mirai emerged on the right, throwing something that clattered loudly against the path. The creature's head swiveled between them, confused by multiple threats. The Quillarian student ran while the Void Claw was distracted, fleeing toward safety. That was good. But now 3 humans stood in a triangle around an apex predator, and Daeun realized they had made a terrible mistake. They weren't hunting the Void Claw. They had cornered it, and cornered predators were the most dangerous kind. The Void Claw stood in the center of the clearing, its head moving between the 3 humans. Its body was tense, claws extended, ready to attack or defend. Daeun could see its chest heaving with rapid breaths. It was stressed, surrounded, and dangerous. But something was wrong. The Void Claw wasn't attacking. It had clear shots at all 3 of them, yet it hesitated. Its glowing eyes fixed on each human in turn, analyzing, calculating. Daeun realized it was doing what the Shriek Hunter had done. It was trying to assess what kind of threat they represented. Don't attack, she whispered into her communication device. Just keep it here. Make noise. Move around. Don't let it rest. What are you thinking? Hyunwoo asked, slowly circling to his left. I'm thinking we don't need to fight it. We just need to exhaust it. Mirai understood immediately. Persistence hunting. Like our ancestors did on Earth. The Void Claw lunged toward Mirai, but Daeun shouted and waved her arms. The creature stopped and turned toward her instead. Then Hyunwoo made noise on the other side, drawing its attention again. The Void Claw spun to face him, then back to Daeun as she moved closer. They kept it up, a careful dance of distraction and positioning. Whenever the Void Claw focused on one human, another would create a disturbance. They never got close enough to be in real danger, but they never let the creature settle. They kept moving, kept making noise, kept forcing it to react and turn and track. 5 minutes passed. The Void Claw was still dangerous, still quick, but Daeun noticed it was breathing harder. Its movements were slightly less precise. 10 minutes. The creature's head movements became slower. It stopped making full turns and just tracked with its eyes. 15 minutes. It tried to find a defensive position against one of the trees, but Hyunwoo moved to block that angle. It attempted to climb to higher ground, but Mirai was already there, forcing it back down. Officer Voresh's voice came through their devices, sounding shocked. What are you doing? The creature's vital signs are dropping, but you haven't engaged it at all. We're hunting, Daeun said simply, circling to her right as Hyunwoo moved left. The way humans have always hunted. The Voidclaw tried to escape. It broke from the clearing and ran toward the garden's edge, but the humans were ready. They had unconsciously predicted its movement. Hyunwoo was already moving to cut off that path. The creature changed direction, heading toward the aquatic section, but Mirai appeared at that angle. It turned again, finding Daeun blocking the third exit. The humans weren't faster than the Voidclaw. They couldn't match its raw speed in short bursts. But they didn't need to. They just needed to keep pace, to always be there, to never let it rest. Every time it tried to stop and catch its breath, one of them would approach, forcing it to move again. 20 minutes. The Voidclaw was panting heavily now. Its movements were sluggish. It tried to attack Daeun out of desperation, but its lunge was slow enough that she easily stepped aside. The creature stumbled slightly as it landed. 25 minutes. It wasn't running anymore, just walking with its head low. The humans maintained their triangle formation, always at the edge of its vision, always present, always pushing it forward. They were herding it now, guiding it slowly toward the center of the gardens where security teams waited. 30 minutes after the hunt began, the Voidclaw collapsed. It simply stopped moving and lay down on the garden path, its chest heaving with exhaustion. It wasn't injured. It wasn't hurt. It was just completely, utterly depleted. The three humans stopped as well, maintaining their distance but watching carefully. They were breathing hard, but they could have continued for hours more if needed. Human bodies were designed for this. Sweat cooled their skin efficiently. Their muscles could work aerobically for extended periods. Their minds stayed sharp even during physical exertion. Heavy security teams moved in with containment equipment. They surrounded the Voidclaw carefully, but the creature didn't resist. It didn't have the energy to resist. They secured it in a reinforced cage and began moving it back to the research wing's high-security section. Officer Varesh approached the three humans, his insectoid features somehow expressing disbelief. In 30 years of security work, I've never seen anything like that. You defeated an apex predator without weapons, without armor, without even touching it. We didn't defeat it, Hyunwoo said, still catching his breath. We just outlasted it. Professor Talon arrived with a team of scientists, all carrying scanning equipment. She looked at the humans with new respect and something that might have been awe. I need to share this data with the Academy Board. They need to see what just happened here. Over the next few hours, the story spread even faster than the Shriek Hunter incident. Video footage from security cameras showed three humans pursuing a Voidclaw through the gardens, never quite catching it, but never letting it escape. The analysis was even more shocking. The Voidclaw's biology was optimized for explosive power and short, brutal hunts. After 30 minutes of continuous exertion, its muscles had filled with fatigue toxins and its energy reserves had crashed. The humans, meanwhile, had shown almost no signs of biological stress. They could have continued the pursuit for hours, possibly days. It was persistence hunting in its purest form, and the entire galaxy was watching. The Academy Board called another meeting, but this time they invited Daeun. She stood before the council with Hyunwoo and Mirai beside her and tried to explain what they had done. We didn't plan it, she said. We just reacted. When the Voidclaw was cornered, we realized that fighting it would end badly for us, so we did what felt natural. We chased it. A board member from the Lumen species spoke, their crystalline voice ringing clear. But you chased it for 30 minutes. Most species can barely run for 5 minutes without exhausting themselves. How is this possible? Because humans evolved to do exactly this, Professor Talon interjected. She displayed biological data on the room's screens. Humans have several unique adaptations that make them exceptional endurance hunters. They can sweat across their entire body, providing efficient cooling. Their respiratory and circulatory systems can sustain aerobic activity for hours. Their leg structure is optimized for long-distance travel. And perhaps most importantly, their minds remain focused and strategic even during extended physical exertion. Another board member spoke. This raises serious questions about human integration into the coalition. If they're this effective as hunters, are they safe to have in civilian populations? Daeun felt her temper flare. You're asking if we're safe? We just saved everyone in those dormitories. Your security teams lost 5 personnel trying to contain that creature. We contained it without anyone getting hurt. How is that dangerous? You're predators, the board member stated flatly. Yes, Daeun agreed, and we are. Earth's apex predator, evolved over millions of years. But you know what else we are? We're social. We're empathetic. We use our hunting instincts to protect, not just to kill. Every herbivore species in this room exists because somewhere in their evolution, they learned to cooperate and build societies. We did the same thing. We're just predators who decided to be more than our instincts. Hyunwoo stepped forward. Look at what we did today. We didn't kill the Void Claw. We captured it safely so it could be studied and eventually returned to its habitat. That's not the action of mindless predators. That's the action of intelligent beings who choose how to use their abilities. Mirai added, every species has aspects of their evolution that could be dangerous in the wrong context. Humans aren't unique in that. We're just unique in being predators who also became spacefarers. The galaxy needs to adjust to that reality because humans are here now and we're not going anywhere. The board deliberated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Humans would not face restrictions on their academic programs. Instead, the Academy would establish new protocols for understanding and integrating predator species. Humans would be asked to help develop these protocols, sharing their insights into predator behavior and instincts. Days later, Daeun stood in front of the Shriek Hunter's cage again. The creature approached the transparent wall when it saw her, pressing against the barrier. She placed her hand on the surface and the Shriek Hunter mirrored the gesture. Professor Talon watched from nearby. It still remembers you. It recognized me from the start, Daeun said. That's what I can't stop thinking about. It knew what I was before I knew it myself. The galaxy is learning the same lesson, Professor Talon said. Humans are predators, but you're also so much more. You protect, you create, you explore. You're hunters who chose to reach for the stars instead of just hunting for food. Daeun looked at her reflection in the transparent wall. Forward-facing eyes, upright posture, a predator's calm gaze, but also a mind full of questions, a heart capable of compassion and hands that could build as easily as they could hunt. Hyunwoo and Mirai joined her at the observation window. The three humans stood together, looking at the Shriek Hunter and their own reflections. People are still nervous around us, Mirai said. They'll adjust, Hyunwoo replied. We just need to show them that being